So September 14th, make sure that's on your calendar at the University of Incarnate Word. Now, let's have a little background here. We started last year during Dream Week, during January of 2024 at University of the Incarnate Word as our host institution, but it was in the music building. And so that was a wonderful venue, but it also was limiting size-wise. So the great news was it was such a success, and I see many of you who were there, who participated, who were committed to making it happen, and I thank you for that. But as we know, we were blown away that 700 people showed up on the coldest, wettest, nastiest day in the city of San Antonio that year. But the warmth that we experienced in that space was absolutely second to
Mhm.
none and motivated us to say, next year, more. How do we grow? So one of the things that happened is that UIW, they paid attention and they said, we want to further invest in this work. And so they have moved us from the music building to the Student Engagement Center. So if you're familiar with UIW, you've been there for like programs in the ballroom, not the Sky Room, different place, the ballroom, that's in the middle of campus in the Student Engagement Center. And that's the space where students come and go all day long. That's where their cafeteria is, that's where the bookstore is, and that's where there's a lot of great space to be able to interact, mix and mingle, do displays, have all kinds of meaningful programs, and a lot of fun too. So you all were talking about youth and that impact. That's the big focus this year is that the journey of faith goes from generation to generation, that we're all part of this generations long journey of faith that is human history. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do was get student engagement this year because the first year there just weren't that many students involved. And here we are on a college campus. We want to have that opportunity to share with that and them to share with us. And so we moved from January to September. And this has proven really valuable because there's a lot more student participation and engagement and interest being in September because students show up in September ready to try things, looking for new opportunities. It's not so much the case in January, but in September it is. So one of the first things I want to tell you is come prepared to stay. I mean, it starts at noon and goes till 6 o'clock on Sunday, September 14th. And you may think, oh, I'll drop by for a few minutes, and that's okay. You can do that. But there's so much to be experienced in the course of the day. So let me share our website with you. And please know that registration is required. This is both a safety issue as well as a welcoming issue for everyone, that we have track of all the folks who are present and a part of the campus that day. Registration is right here at the top of our website. It's an Eventbrite registration. So that's another way to get to registration is through Eventbrite. And you'll see here on our website, there's the home page that gives, some general information about who we are and what we're doing. The About page gives this background about Interfaith San Antonio Alliance a little bit, but that this is a co-host event between Interfaith San Antonio Alliance and the University of the Incarnate Word this year. And we've got pictures of all that's happening. And it tells you about last year, we had 25 local faith traditions represented. Y'all, last count, and this was a week and a half ago, I could count at least 44 different faith traditions that were registered in one way or another, whether they were volunteering or doing a part of a panel, all kinds of activity and buy-in, people who want to go and know and be known. And I think this is such a key part of the festival that all of us as people of faith, we we want the same things. We want peace on earth. We want goodwill for each other. We want to know each other. We want to be respected, and we want to know more about what other people think and how we interact. And this is a real opportunity for that. And if you know folks, let me give an example. Yesterday, I was in a wonderful conversation with a woman who has teenage children. And she said, we haven't really been part of a congregation for a while, had some differences along the way, and we've just kind of dropped out. But I'm so engaged by this idea, by this coming together, by this message of unity. She said, we're going to be there. I'm going to be there with my kids. I'm bringing my husband. We really are excited about this. She had never connected in um, interfaith in any way. This was all news to her, and she was so enthused. So I tell you that to say, tell your friends, tell your neighbors that this is the kind of thing a lot of people are really hungry for. They're looking for an opportunity and a way to engage in something so big and so positive that tells us all we're part of something together and we're better together. So, want you to know that that's particularly important. Looking at the schedule and oh my goodness, this is the schedule at a glance. Please know that when you look at the schedule, this is the abbreviated version here, schedule at a glance. And then there's the granular, each section, each minute kind of thing in the full schedule. But looking at schedule at a glance gives you a sense of how insane we are that we're trying to do this huge lift, not trying, we are doing this huge lift with incredibly dedicated volunteers and great sponsors and folks who want to see this happen and grow in our city. So at 11:30, we'll have an outdoor check-in registration that starts. We've got food trucks coming, and they will be there behind the Student Engagement Center. There's an area just outside the west entrance of the building that's called the Friendship Garden. The biggest, most beautiful tree in San Antonio, and there's some picnic tables. We'll gather there. And starting at 12:30, there will be a community welcome and blessing, and some of our dignitaries will be there to share their good words for what we're doing together. And once we finish that, just a little 30-minute kind of ribbon cutting and blessing time, then we'll move inside. And Father Ron Rollheiser, who is so well known to so many of us and beloved, he will share his insights as our keynote address inside the ballroom space at 1:15. Now, there are all these big concourses within the Student Engagement Center. So on the first floor, to get to the mezzanine where the ballroom is, you will pass through sponsor tables, and we'll talk about sponsors in a minute, but folks who are so all in to see this kind of work happen, to see this kind of engagement. And then specifically, as I said, this year we want to talk about the generation to generation responsibility that we all have as people of faith. And so there's an area that are the Journeys of Faith displays, and it's for display and dialogue. You can see several are listed there. Congregation and congregation leaders who are coming to say, hey, you wonder how or why we do what we do? We're here. Let's talk about it. Let's engage. UTSA has some wonderful students who have been specifically trained as intercultural dialogue coaches. Well, they're coming to help folks engage in that area, to kind of help people get over their, well, I'm not quite sure what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Well, look, no problem. We've got trained folks who can help you do that. Another thing we're doing in that area this year is a passport. And so you can get a little card and you can get your passport marked by these various tables of faith journeys. And then at two critical times during the day, there will be prizes. Believe it or not, you will go into the ballroom and take your card will have been submitted. If you're drawn, you can win a $100 gift card to HEB. I mean, we got a lot going on, y'all. It's going to be a fun day. We have an art gallery that's being hosted by Houseman Millworks. Mission, let me think of his title, Rex Houseman, who is the artist in residence for our missions here in San Antonio and is really quite world renowned. He's going to be painting on site, creating for us in the area of the art gallery that will be on the mezzanine. Um, in Let me get to the right spot here. Then the ballroom stage, which is just the other side of the wall from the art gallery. Then we have all sorts of performing arts happening all afternoon from 1:15 to 5. In that space, you can hear music of many traditions, dances of many traditions, and I think there's even going to be a poet or two who will show up. Um, then I want to make sure you don't miss in kind of the back corner of the second floor is a large open area, and it's just going to be fun for everybody. It's our intergenerational play space. And Michelle Gaston from the Baha'i community has worked diligently with, I think it's about 10 different congregations who are hosting and sponsoring displays, but they're all interactive. So it's a play space where you can go and I think there was comment earlier about painting rocks. Well, last year one group was painting rocks and passing out information about words of peace among all people. And this is the kind of experience. One thing that's new this year, the food bank's coming. They're going to be in that area sharing tastes. Well, in addition to that, a local church is at a table nearby, and they're going to be sharing how our blessings, how are blessings for food expressed in different traditions. So all of these things are working together to help educate all of us. So this intergenerational play space, it's going to be great for kids. It's going to be great for grandmas. Everybody can have a great time in that space. And again, there's a little passport and the opportunity to potentially win or to earn, I should say, in that area, a little backpack with Festival of Faiths on it. So a memento to carry you through from this event to the next. Then, as you come out of that door, there's a storytelling corner. And Sister Martha Ann, I see you on this call. She is organizing folks from across the community, from multiple faith traditions, who will be sharing stories, and particularly storybooks that enrich the lives of people in specific communities that now can be shared widely and broadly. So much is happening. Now, we don't want to miss out in the library auditorium. We ran out of room in the Student Engagement Center, y'all. So they moved our panels and presentations over to the Maybe Library. And really simple, just a few feet away from the front door of the Student Engagement Center. And in the library, we have panel discussions, and I have the full titles here. Antonio Fritzi from Oblate has worked so hard on this, so I don't want to miss out on the titles he's given. So at 2:15 will be Sacred Stewardship, Interfaith Reflections on Care for the Earth. And he has three interfaith leaders who will be in that panel and dialogue. Then at 3:10, Empathy in Action, Conscience-Led Community Engagement, and another three faith leaders engaging at that time. At 4:05, In Harmony with the Divine, Prayer and Music Across Traditions, with three more traditions represented and hearing their perspectives. And then we'll wrap up at 5 o'clock with Dialogue Across Difference, a primer on interfaith literacy. So when this day is done, everyone's had a chance to hear and learn and engage and figure out, hey, this business of making friends who are a little different than me, well, it's not so hard after all. And it can be so much fun and so rewarding. Okay, so I've been talking like a maniac. Would you like me to take a breath and take questions?
That'd be great. One question that I have, Wyndee, I'm already kind of guessing the answer, but people might have it. If, besides everyone having to register, um, one, can they register that day when they get there? And two, if they wanted to table or participate in any way, who would they contact?
Well, they would have needed to have contacted us about 2 months ago because all the tables are long gone. In fact,
Mhm.
I had a sponsor who contacted me the other day, and I was like, well, the deadline was at, in that particular category, August 21st, so I don't have any more tables. But I did offer them an outside table. For some reason, they didn't take it. But so yeah, we've got a lot going on. And back to your question about can you register the day of? Yes,
Mhm.
yes, there is on-site registration as well. We highly recommend registering in advance because it'll help you zip through a lot faster.
Yeah, but I think those are just basic ones. So let's open it to questions, thoughts, even kudos, and going, "Woo, look at us," kind of thing.
And I'm just kind of scrolling through the sponsors because it
Uh-huh.
has been so gratifying to see the response this year, the
Mhm.
increase in sponsorship.
And what does a sponsorship mean if somebody were to want to do that?
Okay, well, a sponsorship is a way to invest in this work, and it's not just limited to the festival. The sponsorships are literally helping carry Interfaith San Antonio Alliance work year round. But a sponsorship is a financial commitment, and then there's opportunity, or there was opportunity to display and to share information at the event. Now, when it comes to the congregations, they have not been required to make a sponsorship to have the display. That's kind of the point of the whole event. But our sponsors also had opportunity for tabling, and most of them are. Couple of them were a little late to the game and missed out on the table. But sponsorship, like I said, is a financial commitment to this work.
And I know this answer, but we want to talk about it too. Where did this idea come from? This overall Festival of Faiths.
Well, it started because this woman I know, Ann Helmke.
That's not the story I was looking for, but okay.
That's the story that I know to tell. So it was sometime in 2023 that asked Dawn Martin, and I think you all know and remember Dawn. She's moved off to Louisville now, but uh, she called us in and said, "Hey, Louisville, Kentucky, coincidentally, where Dawn is now, Louisville, Kentucky has been doing a festival of faiths for 25 or so years at that point. And this just might be something that we could do in San Antonio. And so we latched onto the idea and got the template from them as they had provided a really nice handbook. And we were off to the races, so to speak. So that's where it started in 2023, and then started building with connections. And we talked to Mayor Nuremberg, and he said, love it, all in. And so he was our keynote to open things last year. So that's how it got started, was with one idea being shared with the next. And I will let you know that out of what we're doing, I have been told of one other city that is definitely making commitments toward a festival of faiths, but I'm not at liberty to share that because it's still in the works. And then the idea has spread to another state on the East Coast, and they're intrigued and want to know how to do it in their community. So it's very interesting to me how it started in Louisville, my hometown, by the way. Um, and that subsequently, here we are so far away in San Antonio, but now San Antonio is lobbing it all the way to New Jersey, was what I heard yesterday.
And so we can also see how larger relationships form in this, which is what we talk about at the intersection in terms of collaboration and creating community. That even in that example of where you get, where the idea came from, then making those relationships, and then another place. And Pathways has done a similar thing. It started here, but there's like 19 now cities who are doing pathways. And so that brings, builds an even larger community. And at least for me, it brings me so much hope in our current context of what sometimes can feel a little uncertain, both on a national but also on a local level, because we're going through these, you know, shiftings, right? But to know that there are folks who just keep doing the work. You know, you've been working on this for a year, you know, and that's what happens with pathways. You know, we're doing our review next week, which will lead into next year, right? But we're building both community on a very small micro, but also on a macro scale. And it just does. It gives me hope. There's a term, I think it's overview effect. Overview effect. And there's a book, I think, by exactly that name, where the author just started to do interviews with astronauts who had gone to outer space. And then they tell their story when they get back. And he keeps adding, he just keeps having more interviews with more astronauts. And so it's like on its fourth edition or something. But it really does apply to this, because they go around the planet the first time and they start to point out, oh, look, that's Paris. And oh, look, you know, and then there's, you know, oh, look, that's where I live. That's, you know, and that's where I grew up. They do that kind of thing. And then on another go round, then they start to notice that there are no boundaries. There's no lines, right, on the globe. And then they notice the thin blue atmosphere that goes around the planet, that speaks to them in the stories, to the fragility and the preciousness of all of us. But the interviews then are really about how they come back to Earth, transformed internally, about how they view all of their relationships and the sacredness of us, you know, being in this together. And so I see efforts like the Festival of Faiths doing that, but on the ground, helping us all to have that overview effect, you know, and the preciousness, the sacredness of it all. I hadn't really thought about that until this morning, and how we're able to experience our taste of it, right? We go to the Festival of Faiths and we get a taste of that. And not just a taste. Then once you know, you might sit down, as Wyndee could tell us, and have a meal together, literally.
Yeah.
And then have relationships with each other, and then become connected, and then working together and striving together, finding out that we were all born babies, right? And we have so much in common. So,
That's her hand up, by the way.
oh, good. Let's hear.
This is what we're doing, and let's all keep trying to do it. Build the positive together. Someone I work with, a very fine person, fine educator, has been experiencing prejudice because he is from another country. And so I said to him, work with me on the Festival of Faiths. We can't stop the prejudice in your neighborhood, but we can build this party and get more people and have more fun and recognize the beauty in your religion, in all religions. And so, and whenever you are talking about the recognition of we're all one global family together, this is our local neighborhood opportunity to work through some of the prejudice that is out there. And then I want to say, I put in the chat box a link to an article that I wrote last year. And you know me, the incarnate word sister, I'm always saying the same thing. The article ends with the founding of the Incarnate Word Sisters. 10% of the population had died of plagues. There was no public health care. 3 young immigrants from France came here. They put in the newspaper, all people, regardless of nationality or creed, are welcome. That was 1869. And that's what we're saying on the Incarnate Word campus right now. All people, regardless of nationality or creed, we're all God's one big family. Come, let's enjoy each other.
Mm. Other thoughts or questions? I noticed that Wendy put the website in there, and you can copy paste or link to it and start registering, start thinking about, groups of people that you can take with you or encourage to come.
And I would say, with regard to the website, so you lose the link, whatever, make sure you're looking for Festival of Faiths SA or Festival of Faith San Antonio, because as we mentioned, there is the original Festival of Faiths in Louisville. And I've had people say, I went to your website, but it's in November. I'm like, oh, you weren't on my website.
Mm-hmm. What's really interesting too about that relationship is that although there's a conversation about which city was actually the first U.S. city to become a compassionate city, whether it is Louisville, Kentucky, or I think it's Seattle, Washington. They kind of have a little healthy competition there. But that said, Louisville was one of the first cities to be a compassionate city. And the mayor, who has run all of his terms, Greg Fisher, he businessman, but he ran his entire 16 years on a compassion platform. And so he also worked with our mayor emeritus, Ron Nuremberg, when we were first becoming that compassionate city on a civic level. And so those two work together and are still working together. So we can start to see the multi layers of important relationships that this kind of beautiful, literally beautiful, I mean, we're going to see colors and, it just beautiful work heals us. I mean, it's expressions of love and compassion, and it knits us together as a smaller but larger community. Other thoughts or information or questions? I learned a lot this morning, so I'm glad you came, Wyndee. And I want to remind everybody this recording will be one of the easiest ways for all of us to tell others about this. So Billy with Sacred, that empowers at the intersection, will be taking it and editing, and I mean editing, just kind of cutting off the ends so we get just the bulk of it, right? But we can all go and share what we know with others, but we can also just click the button and they can hear all the description and what Wyndee has shared with us. It would be an easy way to tell others about it. Send the link in emails. Really would love to see you there, that kind of thing. Straight from the Kentucky mouth. I'll put it that way.
And again, I can't emphasize enough to share just the fact it's happening, because of the woman I told you I talked to yesterday that was like, this is kind of the first I've ever heard of this, and it's giving me so much hope.
Mm-hmm.
The data shows, even if people don't attend, knowing these kinds of unifying events are happening in our community helps people feel more hopeful.
Yeah.
And we need it.